Hello and welcome. Two Lights in the Darkness are back again. It's been a while, but here we are. And we have a guest tonight. Today, I mean, for me it's tonight, but and it's Peter Alessandria. Peter, welcome to our podcast thingy. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you and what do you do?
Well, let me start by thanking you guys for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here and speak with you and your audience. This is a very interesting question. Who are you? So, did we lose Allie?
Yeah, we did, but just keep going. She'll be back.
Okay. So this question of who are you, and as I say it, who do you think you are? I know you're asking for an introduction, and I'll get to that in a minute. But this question of who we think we are is the most important question we can ask ourselves. How do you see yourself? Who do you think you are? Because in my experience, whoever I think I am is exactly who I'm going to end up being in life.
Yeah.
And I actually wrote a book about all this. I'll talk about my book a little bit later. So I'll start with the introduction. My name is Peter Alessandria. I'm located in northern New Jersey, about 45 minutes from New York City. I'm a former entertainment attorney. I'm a professional photographer and filmmaker, and an author and a speaker. And my mission is to help all of us remember who we really are, to remember our true nature as eternal spiritual beings connected with each other and with all that is, and that our essence is love and kindness and compassion.
That is so cool. And that is so what we want to um, get across to people as well. I hardly get to know people that are actually wanting to do the same. So it's really refreshing to talk to you. So how did you
Well,
get to do this?
so I've been on a journey, Erna, for about 30 years. And it started when I moved from the East Coast. I grew up in the New York City area, and I went to college and graduate school in upstate New York. And then I bought a one-way plane ticket. I went to law school and I got my MBA, my business, master's in business. And I moved to Los Angeles with the dream of becoming an entertainment attorney, because I really thought, if I have to be an attorney, what would be the most fun and interesting type of law to practice? And so I wanted to be an entertainment attorney. And what happened was, as I worked in that industry, I was exposed to the creative process. So
Yeah.
in my own upbringing, I didn't really know anything about filmmaking. It wasn't until I got into that industry that I caught the bug, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I eventually became an amateur filmmaker and photographer. And then in 2008, I lost my law practice in the global financial crisis. Within a matter of months, it was gone. And so I
Oh,
came to a crossroads in my life.
yeah.
And the crossroads was, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? I had practiced law for almost 20 years, and I was grateful for that, but it wasn't really my passion. And so I thought, well, maybe this is an opportunity for me to do what I love. So what do I love to do? And the thing that kept coming to my mind was photography, filmmaking, visual storytelling, and all of that. And I thought, okay, I'm going for it. So I moved back to the East Coast. My parents were getting older, and I don't have any children of my own, but my sister started having kids. So I had 8 nieces and nephews, and I was flying back and forth for birthday parties and holidays and all of that. So I moved back to the East Coast. And for 3 years, and I was going to start a new business as a
Hmm.
professional photographer. And for 3 years, nothing happened. I sat on this couch for almost 3 years. And at first I thought, well, it must be because of the economy, because the economy was still pretty rough. And I thought, well, maybe that's not it. And then I thought, it must be because I don't have a formal education in art or photography. I went to law school. I didn't go to art school. Well, what do I know about art?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe that's not it. The point is, I had a whole list of excuses and reasons why things weren't working out.
I was
And it
just going
turned
to
out,
say,
the problem wasn't out there. The problem was in here.
yeah.
And so I turned out I had a very limited negative self-image as a creative person. And I was living in fear of rejection and criticism. And I was terrified to put myself out there as an artist. Well, after 3 years, the money ran out. And it was like, okay, I had a bunch of money saved. And now it
I
was
have
like,
to do
okay,
something.
I got to do something. So I started applying. Now, 30 years ago, 25 years ago, when I first got to California, I just kind of embarked on this journey of self-discovery, spiritual growth, personal growth. Started reading self-help books, new age spiritual books, more traditional books, and subject matter. I got involved in some 12-step programs as well to deal with some of my addictions. And all of that kind of opened me to a whole new way of looking at the world and ultimately looking at myself. And I studied things like law of attraction and affirmations
Hmm.
and visualization and all of that. So when I realized that I had to do something to get this photography business going, I said, this would probably be a good time to start applying all that stuff that I've been studying for all these years. And so I really embarked on this journey of transforming my self-image. That's why, as I said earlier in the beginning, who we think we are is the most important question we can ask ourselves. It's the most important thing we can look at. Everybody spends a lot of time trying to change behaviors, trying to change habits. And my experience is that when I change my self-image, when I transform how I see myself, all that stuff takes care of itself.
Yeah.
But what I didn't realize was that I had this very negative, limiting program running in my subconscious mind. And that program was saying, oh, who do you think you are? You're not a photographer. Nobody's going to like your work. You're just kidding yourself. You're going to
Yeah.
be rejected. And not only are you going to be rejected, but it's going to be painful and you're going to be humiliated.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even really aware. Those tapes were so old that I wasn't even really consciously aware of them. But those tapes, those programs, those beliefs were running my life, and without me realizing it. And most of those beliefs, Erna, are the result of the mind of a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
I was a
Yeah.
little kid and stuff was happening and I didn't understand it. And I interpreted it as there was something wrong with me. There
Yeah.
was something about me that was not okay. And ultimately, the belief was I was not good enough, which is another way of saying I'm not worthy, which is another way of saying I'm not worth being loved the way I am.
Exactly. Exactly.
And
Yeah.
I had a series of painful experiences. And I mean, I won't even talk about my love life, but in my work experiences and with friendships and all of that, I had a lot of painful experiences which reinforced those beliefs without me really knowing. And so it became a reinforcement of a program that I wasn't even aware of.
Yeah. It's
So that
stacking
meant,
up, stacking up, stacking up, and then it's just there.
and so that began the real work. And that
Yeah.
was to begin to undo all that doo-doo that was holding me back in life. And so I began this journey of becoming hyper aware in the moment. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? What am I saying? What am I doing? Is this serving me? Having a plan, having a vision for my life, using affirmations, really beginning to consciously confront those limiting thoughts and
Yeah.
ask myself over and over again, is that really true? Is it true that I'm not good enough? Is it true that they're not going to like me? Is it true that I don't have what it takes to be a successful artist?
And what were the
And
answers
so,
at that
well, the
moment,
answer,
huh?
well, that was, you know what it was? The answer was you have a choice, you have a decision. You can believe the old things that you've told yourself all these years, or you could take a chance and have a different answer. Now,
Yeah.
here's the thing. So there's two things that come next. So the next thing is you have to take action. I have to get into action. I have to move forward with my life with these new beliefs, because the
Yeah.
beliefs lead to new actions. A basic premise of my book is that our thoughts lead to our feelings lead to our words and our words and actions lead to the outcomes that we experience in life. So if I start with crappy thoughts, I'm going to have crappy feelings. Crappy feelings, I'm going to speak crappy words and take crappy actions. Crappy words and actions are going to lead to crappy outcomes.
Yeah.
And of course, the opposite is also true. So I have to consciously and deliberately see myself in a new way, in a positive, affirming, hopeful, empowered way. And then I have to take action based on those thoughts. Now, the other big thing, Erna, that I realized, the biggest transformation was that I had to go from being my own worst enemy to my own best friend.
That's a big
Because
one, eh?
because it wasn't anybody else's opinion of me that was the problem. It wasn't their criticism of me, it was my own.
Yeah.
And that criticism of me kept me small, kept me safe, but safe is not really an expanded state. You know, you're not really going to move forward in your life if your only concern is to stay safe.
There's no
And then I
growth.
realized there was nobody out there to worry about. It was all in here. So as I began just to be nicer to myself, to be more loving and kind and gentle with myself. And so I went from somebody who never won an award for anything in my life to somebody who's won more than 75 awards for my photography. I went from somebody who was afraid to post my photos on Facebook to somebody who has had his photos posted in newspapers, magazines, online around the world. And from someone who thought nobody's ever going to want to purchase my photos, my work, to somebody who has sold prints to collectors as far away as Australia. So I
Wow.
created a whole new life by simply transforming who I thought I was, how I
Yeah.
saw myself, and being nicer to myself in the process.
Yeah.
I'll stop there. There's a lot more, but I'll stop right there. Oh, well, the last thing I'll say is I wrote a book about that transformation. All right. And so my book is called Be Bigger Than You Think You Are, Overcoming Our Self-Imposed Limits to
Yeah.
Have the Life We Want. People can go to my website. It's bebiggertoday.com, all one word, Be Bigger Today. And I have my book there. I have 90 hours of videos, free content for people to learn about this process that I went through. The other thing I'll say is that book is set up as a workbook. So at the end of each chapter, there are exercises. And that, in my opinion, is one thing to read a book, but it's another thing to actually actively engage in the learning process by doing the exercises.
Yeah.
It's
Exactly.
available as an audiobook, as an ebook. If you get the audiobook, I also have a separate workbook that you can get that'll help, that gives you space to write out your answers to the exercises while you're listening and all of that.
Cool. So how did you get uh to how did you get the idea to write a book like that and then in that format? My lighting is a bit, I feel like spooky, but
Yeah, it's kind of cool. Well, so I had been thinking about writing a book for a long time. And because people were saying, you know, how did you do that? How did you transfer? Because people were watching me and seeing the changes that were taking place. And so I've been thinking about writing a book for a long time, and I always had excuses. I was too busy, you know, winning awards, or too busy working for clients, or whatever. I mean, a book, for me at least, if you do it right, a book is a big undertaking. It takes a
yeah,
lot of time.
yes.
So interesting thing happened. So it was 2019, and I was back in Los Angeles. I did a photo shoot for a client in LA, and then I drove up to Northern California to Yosemite National Park because I wanted to take photos of the park. And on the drive up, I was about a half hour from the park. I got out of my car and I was at a visitor center, and I was looking for a restroom. And I got out of the car and I was a little groggy. I hadn't gotten enough sleep the night before, and I tripped on a curb. I couldn't see this. It was concealed by these vending machines, and I caught my foot on the curb. I didn't actually fall. but I tore my calf muscle. And
Ooh.
I don't know if you've ever done that, but it is excruciating. It was so painful. And it immediately rendered me lame. I couldn't really use my right leg after that. But in that moment, in the exact moment when I felt all that pain and I was completely shocked, I had a moment of clarity. And it was, I'll say it was a voice, but it wasn't really a voice, it was a knowing. And the knowing was, the statement was, now you can write your book.
Whoa.
And then it was gone. And I haven't had anything like that since. And I don't hear voices and I don't see beings or anything like that. But I knew in that moment I had to write my book. And
Yeah.
I somehow I made it to the hotel. And that night I started writing the book. And I didn't stop really. It took me almost 9 months. I finally made it back to the East Coast and it was a whole
Yeah.
big thing, but I finished that book. And then the pandemic hit. And so now I'm thinking, uh, now what am I going to do? And it was like I had wanted to do the audiobook.
Yeah.
So I said, great, I'm going to record the audiobook since I can't work anyway. Nobody's working, whatever. And that turned into a second edition. So most of 2020 was working on the audiobook and doing a second edition of the book.
And you recorded it yourself, your voice, your
It was very important for me to do it in my voice.
yeah, yeah.
So that's how the book came about. Now, that's a big jump from where I am now. So let me just, unless you have questions, let me fill you in on the interim because a lot has happened in the last
Go,
3 years.
go.
So basically, what happened was in that time period, I had been more and more interested in spirituality, and I knew a little bit about near-death experiences and the afterlife and all of that. But it wasn't any kind of a real thing for me. I was more interested in the here and now. But I read a book, a novel, and it was by a guy named William Buhlman, and it's called Adventures in the Afterlife. And it's all about the afterlife. And it's all about this person who passes and goes into the afterlife, and he meets his guide, and his guide takes him through all the different levels of the afterlife. And I read that book and I thought, wow, this is actually a really cool book. And I said, it would even be cooler as a movie. So I reached out to William Buhlman, and I said, have you thought about making this into a film? He said, yeah, but he said, I don't want to do that. I'm teaching people how to have out of body experiences. He was more of a teacher. He didn't want to be a screenwriter or anything like that. I said, well, look, I used to work in Hollywood. If I can help, if somebody approaches you and I can help, let me know. And I was writing my book at that time. So I knew I couldn't take on another project. But when I
Yeah.
finally finished my book 2 years later, I got back in touch with him and I said, what's going on? Anything happening with the book into a movie? He said, no. I said, well, I want to option the book and I want to make it into a movie. So we did a contract. I optioned the book from him. I spent about a year working on the screenplay, but during that period of time, I started doing research, going online and watching a lot of YouTube videos on near-death experiences. And if you've done that, there are now thousands of these interviews out there.
Yeah.
And I've gotten to know a lot of the people personally. I actually started reaching out to some of these people. Originally, it was research for my film, but then it became more like there was something else I needed to do, and I wasn't sure what that was. And about 8 or 9 months ago, I was having a Zoom with somebody who was on a very popular podcast talking about a near-death experience. And it hit me that morning. And what hit me was and this was, so I'm making breakfast and I'm waiting for the toast to pop out of the toaster. And I'm thinking, I didn't even know why I was reaching out to this person. And then it hit me, you have to do a documentary film about all this. And you have to interview all these people.
Oh.
And so that day, I started on the documentary film that I'm now working on, which is called What Every Soul Knows, The Secret to Remembering Who We Really Are.
Yeah.
And the basic premise of this documentary is that once we begin to wake up and remember our true nature as eternal spiritual beings, that there's something much bigger going on, that we have voluntarily chosen to have this life experience in the physical plane, that we choose the people in our lives, our family members, our,
Yeah.
close associates in the world, and all the challenges we face, and many of us face great challenges here, are for our highest good. They are opportunities for us to grow and evolve and expand and become more as a spiritual being. And we
Yeah.
come here because this is the place. This is like boot camp. In the
Yeah.
afterlife,
Earth
it's
is
all
is boot camp.
right. In the afterlife, it's all love and it's all beautiful. There are no challenges for the most part. So we come here to have this experience. So to date, I have interviewed 30 people, most of whom have had near-death experiences. Some of them are psychics and mediums. And I'm putting together this documentary that I hope is going to be reminiscent. Maybe some of your viewers remember the 2006 documentary, The Secret, about the law of attraction.
Yeah.
So I want to do something along those lines, something that has that kind of impact to help all of us wake up and remember the truth of who and what we are and why we're here.
It's high time that people start to wake up, huh?
There is an awakening happening. I think there
Yeah.
is, there is a raising of consciousness on the planet. But here's the thing, chaos always precedes a change like this.
Yeah.
So we're seeing a lot of extremes in the world, and we're seeing a lot of divisiveness and hatred and bigotry. And
Yeah.
at the same time, there's this grand awakening to our true natures as spiritual beings. And it's all part of the plan. It's all part of the program,
Yeah.
and so ultimately we will have to choose for ourselves which side we come out on. And I have been studying A Course in Miracles for 30 years, and the Course says we're only capable of two emotions, love or fear.
Yeah.
And everything that we do in every moment of every day is a choice for either love or fear. And nothing is happening to us, everything is happening through us and for us. We're not victims of the world. We are powerful beings, powerful creators. We're so powerful that we can cause ourselves to forget who and what we really are, to come here
Yeah.
and have this experience.
Yeah.
I want to be part of this awakening, and it's not just me. There are, many other people that are contributing to this process of the awakening. And so I'm playing my part in that, my small little part. But it's great. And I've interviewed all these people who have been dead. They died. They were
Can you
clinically,
can you
their
imagine, huh?
their body was clinically dead. No heartbeat, no brain function, whatever. And they went to the other side and they had an experience that changed their lives. Here's the thing, a lot of people say, well, it's just a hallucination, or it's the endorphins or whatever from when the brain
Yeah.
starts to unwind or whatever. But you know what? Hallucination doesn't change somebody's life, doesn't
No.
transform somebody's life. Almost every one of these people has had some kind of a significant change in how they live their lives.
So
For instance,
that would be like the common denominator in all the stories of the near death experiences, that it changes people's lives
so
fundamentally, or
absolutely. So an example is somebody who was a broker on Wall Street, and his whole life was about money, making money, and didn't really care, you know, how he did that, but that was his deal,
Mhm.
right? He has a near-death experience, and he completely leaves that world behind, and now he works in hospice. He helps people transition,
That's very different.
and all of these people, not to that extreme, but all of them were transformed by this experience. So it's not just a hallucination.
No,
A hallucination doesn't cause somebody to change their life that way.
no, true.
And I have to say, Erna, these people, every one of them were some of the nicest, kindest. Now, I'm not doing Zoom interviews. They all have to come to my location here in New Jersey because I'm filming them. I'm filming everybody on camera. I'm using professional cameras, lenses, lighting, audio equipment. I mean, I'm doing a feature film,
That's
a,
so,
a, a a really nice production here.
yeah.
And I went down to, in Washington, D.C. at the end of August, there was a conference for the International Association of Near-Death Studies. Short is IANDS,
Hmm.
IANDS.org. And they have a annual conference, but they're at this point a worldwide organization that supports people who have these experiences, because
Yeah.
for a lot of these people it's a very stigmatizing, it's a very confusing experience. You come
Yeah.
back and you tell your doctor, hey doc, while my heart was stopped and you guys were trying to bring me back, I saw Jesus, I saw God, I saw my grandmother who passed away in 1965. And by the way, it's beautiful there. And and by the way, when I left my body, I saw everybody who was in this hospital room, and I can tell you exactly what they said and exactly what they did when you guys thought I was dead, because my consciousness survives.
Yeah.
This is the point. There is no death. The body dies, but we're not our bodies.
No.
Consciousness, awareness, beingness, the beingness, the soul that we are continues without the body, to the
Yeah.
point where
Mm.
you can have an out of body experience even just during meditation, and
Yeah.
you can see everything that seems to be going on in this world, okay, but you're no longer in that body.
Yeah.
So what happens is a lot of these people come back and they tell their doctor that, especially a lot of these people had experiences in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 1990s, before this was a popular or understood kind of thing. And they were ostracized. They were
Yeah.
told they were
Exactly.
crazy. They were sent to mental institutions. Their family wouldn't talk to them.
Yeah.
So it's less and less of that as this becomes more and more common. I
Yeah.
mean, it's estimated now that millions of people have these experiences every year. Okay, where they
Millions.
die and then they come back,
Yeah.
hundreds of thousands. You know,
Yeah.
it's much more common than we think. So IANS is a great organization. They support people who have these experiences. And the reason I mentioned the conference is I went down there to Washington. I brought all my equipment, set up in a conference room, and I interviewed 12 people there. And then I've been interviewing other people coming here to my location. I'm actually traveling a little bit to meet people to film
Mm.
them. But I now have like 40 hours of footage. Now, here's the thing: we're not really telling the story. So we're not talking about the botched surgery. We're not talking about the car accident. If people are interested in that, all the people that I'm interviewing, their stories are already out there. They've done podcasts, they've written books. You can find
Yeah.
out all that information.
Yeah.
My emphasis, my focus is on what did you learn from the experience? How did it change you? And what can you tell us that we can use now to change our own lives, to live a
Yeah.
better life? So that's really been the emphasis. And it's been wonderful. I mean, it's actually, it's so amazing.
Is that
I had
is
my
it like for the people that you interviewed, is it a relief that they can talk about this whole experience in that way instead of oh, you had a near death experience? How was it? Did you see the light at the end of the tunnel?
right. Yeah, I think for most of them it's a breath of fresh air. Now, look,
Yeah.
I don't want to. I don't. I think that's helpful too. That part of the process is helpful too. To talk about what actually happens when you
Hmm.
leave your body, go through the tunnel, you come out into the light, you meet your guides. We talk about in my film, we talk about the life review process. I don't know if you're familiar with the life review, but
Yeah.
basically what happens is when we pass to the other side, at a certain point, we get to review the entire lifetime that we just had. And we get to see how we acted and interacted with other people. And it's for the purpose of education. It's not, nobody is punished, nobody is made wrong. It's in the spirit of love and kindness, and it's an opportunity to increase our awareness, to learn, to grow. And the interesting thing about the life review is that we experience our behavior from the other person's perspective. So If I did something kind for you
Yeah.
that just lit you up, guess what? I actually will experience it how you experienced it. I will feel those feelings of joy and of elation and whatever, gratitude. And by the same token, if I do something that's harmful to you, guess what? I'm going to experience those feelings as well.
Yeah.
Because the reality is, Erna, we're all one. We're all connected. There is no separation. We have this experience here in what seems like separation because of we have an ego, and the ego is all about separation, is all about differences, it's all about division. It's also all about survival of the fittest and everything else. But that's not the truth of us.
No.
That's not who we really are. We've adopted that mindset, in a sense, in the early stages of our species. That was really helpful. It was really helpful to be suspicious. It was really helpful to be self-centered. It was really helpful to form alliances. I mean, if you want to see the ego in action, just watch a reality TV show like Survivor or Big Brother. You know,
Yes.
that's the ego in action.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's not our true nature. See, it's not competition that will have us survive, it's cooperation.
Yeah.
It's not separation, but similarities. It's seeing the oneness, seeing my brother as myself, understanding that we're all connected, and that the only way to truly change a situation, this is not to say that there's not stuff on earth that needs to be changed. You just got to turn on the news and you can see all the dysfunction. But you can never change that from a place of anger. You can never, ever change that from a place of judgment or condemnation or
No.
force or coercion or manipulation. The only way to have lasting change in the world is through love. Love, compassion, understanding,
When there's
brotherhood.
love, there's no place for fear or yeah, for fear or anger or sadness.
And what takes the place of all of that is miracles.
Yeah.
It's miraculous how things can change that you thought could never change. So, my message, my mission, my hope is to be part of this awakening, to be part of this movement, which is happening around the world. We only see the negative stuff on the news, but I guarantee you that there's just as large a movement in the positive direction.
Yeah.
People are waking up, people are becoming more aware, and more willing to leave the old way behind and say there has to be a better way. There has to
Well,
be another way.
sometimes I think it's hard for people to see that there is a better way and that there is a oneness in all of us, especially with everything going on at the moment.
We
And
got to
maybe
show
also
them.
the fear.
We got to be the example of that.
Yeah.
It's Course in Miracles says to teach is to demonstrate. We don't teach with our words.
No.
We teach with our choices. We teach with the actions.
Yeah.
You be the light, and other people will see that light, and that will inspire them to make those changes. But sitting around talking about what's wrong with the world is not going to
There's
fix or
nothing.
change
No.
or help the
No,
world.
true. True. Absolutely true.
To judge, to condemn, to say you're wrong, I'm right, that's all ego.
Yeah.
And to say, I can't believe you could do that. Well, you know what? Until you can see how somebody else could do that, there's not going to be any change in the world. It's compassion. In my book, the longest chapter in my book, and I actually did a TED talk on this, a TED talk on forgiveness,
Hmm.
TEDx talk, and the longest chapter in my book is on forgiveness.
Yeah.
And I talk about the power of forgiveness. I talk about what forgiveness is, and the power of forgiveness. And I give an example in my book of how somebody attacked me on Facebook claiming that my photos were photoshopped because I take these amazing photos of New York City, and a lot of the photos have the full moon over the landmarks in the
Oh,
city. Go to my Facebook page, Peter Alessandria Photography. Go to my website, peteralessandriaphotography.com. You can see all my photos. And so this person, and this person attacked me, And I didn't react the way I might have in the past. And instead, I befriended this person. I got to know him. I got to find out why he was so upset, what was really bothering him, which meant I couldn't take his comments personally. I couldn't judge him or make him wrong. I had
Yeah.
to detach from all of that and say, Course in Miracles says all attacks are a call for love.
Yeah.
So I said, all right, he's attacking me. It's not about me. It's got to be about him. Let me see if I can help this person. So I got to know him. I befriended him. We became friends. Not only did we not, did it transform the relationship, he became a customer of mine. He licensed some of my photos for his business. After claiming that I was a fraud, he became a customer.
Wonderful.
But it gets even better. He introduced me to a larger company in the same business, and I learned all about this was the souvenir business. So if you go to New York City on Fifth Avenue by the Empire State Building, there are all these souvenir shops where you can buy coffee mugs, refrigerator magnets, T-shirts, calendars, postcards with New York City photos that you take home to the Netherlands or wherever you're visiting from. You take it home. And I learned all about the souvenir business. And I went to this national company, the biggest company in the US, and I made a very lucrative license deal with them to use my photos on their souvenirs. So now I have refrigerator magnets, coffee mugs, and that would have never happened if I got into a fight with this
Fight with
guy
this
on
guy.
Facebook.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is a miracle. Okay. That is a miracle that it went from this to this
Yeah.
and money in my pocket. Can't argue with that.
It's like a win-win.
And that was all from forgiving, not taking things personally.
Yeah.
How can I help? How can I let go of the judgment? Not be defensive. Remember, defensiveness begets defensiveness. Anger begets anger.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's
So
difficult, huh? That's difficult to even like the forgiveness as well. People do take things personally and they're like, why? Why would I forgive someone for something that he or she did to me? It's so much easier to go at them than to say, hey, how come you're attacking me? What's going on here? So I find
you got to read
this
my
a
book.
really
It's
inspiring
you got to read my
story.
book.
Yeah,
It's all in the book. I explain it. I go step by step by step how to do that. You're right. It can be difficult, but it's only difficult because here's the thing. If somebody criticizes, I said this earlier, I'm going to say it again. It's not somebody else's criticism that's the problem.
no.
See, the only reason I used to get upset when people criticized me is because I was afraid they were right. I was afraid that I wasn't good enough. I was afraid I didn't have what it took.
Yeah,
So now I have to defend myself. But when I love who I am, when I know who I really am, when I know
there's
the
no
truth
need.
about me, then it doesn't matter what you think of me.
Exactly.
In 12-step programs, they say, what you think of me is none of my business. And
Yeah,
those comments, say a lot more about you than they do about me.
yeah, true.
Somebody who's attacking me, they're talking about themselves. One of my nieces is now 17, but when she was about 8 or 9, she was having a lot of trouble in school with people kind of bullying her and not being very nice. And I just pulled her aside and I said, sweetheart, I said, you have to understand when somebody says something mean to you, they're really talking about themselves.
Yeah,
It's not about you. They don't like themselves. And when we don't like ourselves, we say mean things and do mean things to other people.
yeah.
And and maybe 6 months ago, I've forgotten about that. And she reminded me, she said, Uncle Peter, I remember when you told me that and it changed everything. you know so it's understanding, and I talk about nobody has power over us. Nobody makes us feel anything,
No,
Erna. Nobody makes us think, feel, say, or do anything.
no.
We're always at choice. We can always choose in every moment how we're going to respond to something like that.
Yeah,
But if you have a poor self-image, if you don't believe in yourself, if you think that you're unworthy, if you think you have to defend yourself from the world, which is what the ego tells us, then everybody is a potential enemy.
Yeah.
Everybody is a potential conflict, and even the people we think we love, we only love them until they do something we don't
That
like.
doesn't
And
fit.
now
Yeah, exactly.
all of a sudden, we're not so sure about them.
No,
But that's
true.
all about us.
Yeah.
Now, the last thing I'll say about all of this is forgiveness is the key, but the key to forgiveness is to have healthy boundaries, to understand how to take care of yourself in a
Yeah.
situation. Because it often may not make sense to forgive somebody if they're being abusive towards you, because then you're just setting yourself up for more harm.
Yeah.
So you have to do what you have to do to take care of yourself first. And then
Yeah.
forgiveness is about letting them go, releasing the situation, releasing the feelings, releasing the other person. Part of the releasing process may be that they're no longer in your life.
Yeah.
But if you do that with love, as opposed to resentment, as opposed to having a grievance, as opposed to being angry and wanting to hurt them, if you can detach with love and compassion, then you're good.
Yeah. Exactly.
You're not a victim. You're not a victim of the situation. You're not a victim of the other person, but you've done, which is your responsibility as an adult. As kids, it's a little different, but as an adult, I'm responsible for doing what I need to do to take care of myself. And that means not putting myself in harmful situations with inappropriate people.
Yeah, exactly. So how would you teach that to children? You already mentioned
Again,
the example from your niece, but that's something that intrigues me massively because I think if we can teach our children, then we set up the world for a better place.
totally. You're totally on point with that. So, two things. I'll say the second one first. I eventually, I think I'm going to be doing a whole series of educational films for kids that will teach them all of this.
Yeah,
So instead of the typical stuff you see on TV or in the theaters, I'm hoping to have some kind of an educational series of films that will teach kids exactly these concepts. But that could be a few years off. So until then, the only way that we teach our children is by learning it ourselves.
yeah, true.
So it's up to the parents to learn. And then remember, I said earlier, to teach is to demonstrate.
Yeah,
Course in Miracles says that. So we have to demonstrate that type of behavior, which means that when we're in the car and somebody cuts in front of us, instead of yelling and screaming and using profanity, we say, okay, this first, let's make sure everybody's safe, make sure there's no injury or anything like that. Everything's good. And then to say, okay, I have a choice in this moment how I'm going to respond to this situation. And I can either get upset right now, or I can say, maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe there's something going on with that person that I'm not aware of.
yeah,
One of the things I say in my book is that if in a situation like that, a difficult situation, we can say to ourselves, if I saw the world the way they see the world, and if I saw myself the way they see themselves, then I would probably be doing the exact same thing I'm doing right now, that they're doing right now. And that makes me the same as them.
yeah,
We don't condone inappropriate behavior, but we begin to understand, okay, maybe there's something else going on here. Maybe this is not about me. I don't have to take it personally. The other big thing that I learned, Erna, for me was that so we have a big problem with anger in the world and in the country and everything. And what I learned for me is that anger is actually an expression of fear.
yeah,
Fear in my life, fear always precedes anger. Okay, now why is that important? Well, if I am in an interaction with somebody and you do something and I feel angry, the typical response is to, and I said this earlier, anger begets anger. The typical response, if I approach you with anger, then you're going to come back at me with anger or
yeah,
defensiveness or whatever. And guess
Yeah.
what? Nothing can get resolved in that state. But if I recognize, gee, you know what? If I'm angry, that really means I'm afraid. And so what am I afraid of? And it's usually some form of loss or injury or some negative consequence to me.
Yeah.
And if I can express to the other person that I'm afraid as opposed to angry, then guess what? I'm not accusing them of causing me to be upset. I'm saying, gee, you did this and I'm really concerned. I'm really afraid. I'm worried that this is going to happen. Can you help me? And now all of a sudden they're not defensive because we're not accusing them. We're actually saying, can you help me?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. You're reaching out.
the natural response is to want to help.
Yeah.
And then maybe they'll explain why they did what they did. And then it's like, oh, okay. And then we can negotiate, next time, maybe can you say it like this instead of like that? We can come to some kind of a solution.
That's
But if
all
it's
about
always,
connection, eh?
yeah, but if it's always about, you know, fighting, conflict, and I'm right and you're wrong, I'm angry and it's your fault I'm angry, by the way. I don't take responsibility for my own feelings. I'm blaming you for how I feel.
So
You're going to
easy.
be defensive. You're going to be
Yeah.
defensive. You're not going to, and nothing's going to get resolved. Now, I actually did this in a situation where somebody did something and I was so angry about it. And then I said, all right, I wrote this darn book, so I got to start applying some of this stuff in my life. All right, if I'm angry, I'm really afraid. What am I afraid of? Okay, I get what I'm afraid of. How can I express to them my concerns that I was afraid? And it completely, when I did that, and I did it in a letter,
Yeah.
when I did that, it completely transformed the situation. Whereas in the past, I had gone after them with anger and how could you do this? And I'm calling the police or whatever.
Yeah.
And nothing ever got resolved. But when I was willing to be vulnerable enough to tell the truth about what was really going on, by how to recognize it first, anger is not about anger. Anger is an expression of fear.
Yeah. It makes a
And
difference, huh?
totally.
Yeah.
And that is the only way that we're going to resolve a situation. Otherwise, it becomes, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And I'm justified in doing whatever I have to do to you. And you just got to look what's going on in the world right now. That's the
Yeah,
exact
exactly.
mentality that is leading to all the chaos and all the death and all the inhumanity that's taking place because
Yeah.
everybody feels they're right and they're justified. And you did it to me first, so now I'm justified in doing it
Yeah,
back to you.
exactly. Yeah.
Somebody has to break that cycle. Somebody has to get off that train. Otherwise, we're doomed as a species.
Yeah, I agree.
And if you
Absolutely.
think it's bad now, wait until AI comes in and everything else. We're really on thin ice here.
Yes, yes, we are. And AI is getting bigger and bigger, huh? I always said, no, I'm not going to use AI for my social media or anything that I write or, well, guess what? I used it to get the outline for a course that I'm making.
I haven't used it yet, but I'm close. But AI is not the problem.
No,
AI could transform us in miraculous ways. It could be a really positive force in the world.
I
It
must say
really,
I'm amazed at how great a tool it is. Because it's not like you're
but
losing your authenticity. It's just something that makes things easier and you can always have your own input in the things that you ask AI to do.
yeah, no, it could be an amazing tool,
Yeah,
and it could transform things in a miraculous way. But it could also be our undoing. It really depends on who's programming the AI, who's behind it.
yeah,
That's a whole other conversation. And from the spiritual standpoint, that's all part of the challenges. It's all raising the
yeah,
stakes. And what it's forcing us to do is choose, as I said earlier, between love and fear. If we choose on the side of fear, then we're done. But if we can make that decision and begin to choose from that place of love, compassion, understanding, we still can take care of ourselves. Again, we're not making excuses for inappropriate behavior. We don't have to become a doormat to somebody else's inappropriate behavior.
Yeah.
But when I can see myself in the other person, I've had this experience more and more when it's like somebody's really upset, and I'm like, instead of judging them, it's like, oh crap, that's what I look like when I'm like that. It's like that recognition of seeing myself in another person.
Yeah.
But I have to get past the judgment. I have to get past the, I'm better than them. I'm better than you. I know more than you. I'm right. You're wrong. I'm right. You're wrong is the ego. That's ego 101.
Yeah.
And that will be our undoing. That will undo this planet, quite frankly.
Yeah.
So we have to find a way to move past that. I feel like my book is a tiny little part of that. There's innumerable books, programs, teachers, but you have to want it. People have to want to choose to change.
Yeah.
People have to
Yeah.
choose
That's
to
the thing,
change.
yeah. That's the thing. If
And
you don't want to
it's
change, if it's not in your heart, then yeah, then nothing happens.
things are going to force people to have to choose.
Yeah.
The water is almost boiling now, and once the water boils, you got to choose.
Yep. Yeah, for
Alli,
sure.
you were muted. Your mic is muted, Alli. I don't know if you were talking or just nodding or what.
Oh
I didn't hear you.
gosh, yeah, it was muted. I was like wondering, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's going in. Yeah, so I just said, yeah, that goes back to fear and it goes back to comfort zone, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what? Here's the good news. We are up for this. We came here for this. You guys are here right now in this place at this time to have a part of this experience, to take part
Yeah.
in the experience.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's here by accident,
No,
and nobody's here against their will.
no,
Right.
And
absolutely.
and even the people who seem to be on the dark side are playing their role, because we need them to make the higher choice, for
Yeah.
us to make the higher choice.
There's no
It's
light
very,
without darkness, huh?
that's basically the truth. And the way one of the people in my film, my documentary, described it, she said, so you go through this lifetime and there's these people and they play these roles, and it's like a big Broadway production, and you're on stage and each of you are playing a role, and some of the roles are very kind and loving and wonderful, and some of the roles are really antagonistic and evil and dark. And then the play is over and the curtain goes down and everybody applauds, and then the curtain goes up again and all the characters are on stage holding hands, taking a bow in front of the audience, because that was all part of the plan, that we would all take on these roles so we can have this experience. Now, there's this thing called the veil of forgetting. And the
Yeah.
veil of forgetfulness is we have to forget who we really are in order to make this experience here seem real. If you right now, for instance, if we remembered all our past lives, and by the way, all our future lives, because there is no past or future in the afterlife, everything is
It's
happening right
linear.
now.
Yeah.
There's no reincarnation. It's one life
Right.
that we have segmented in our consciousness, and we call it past, we call it future. But anyway, if you remembered all that right now, you would go crazy. You wouldn't be able to function.
Yeah.
Beyond that, it's like if you knew all the answers to the final exam, it would become meaningless.
Right.
It would have no meaning. If you're a quarterback and you know that every time you get up to throw a pass, it's going to be a touchdown, eventually, at first it might be really cool, but eventually it's just going to become meaningless and boring.
Yeah.
It's in the not knowing, in the not remembering, that makes this experience meaningful. And people say, well, how could that be? And why would I choose to have? I mean, I have one woman in my documentary. She lost both of her children. One of her children died when he was very young. Another one died more recently, but she lost both her children. And she is one of the happiest people I have ever met. She is so filled with life. She is so, and she's so eager to help other people who have this experience, because that she decided, by the way, that that was her mission, to help other people through this experience. And she's the only one who can do that because she knows how it feels to lose a child, two
Yeah.
children.
Wow.
So,
That's amazing, huh?
Yeah.
Totally amazing. But
Yeah.
that's the point. We are up to this. We have it within us to overcome all of this without violence, without anger, without hurting each other. You know, we have it within us, but we have to choose it, and we have to dig deep, and we have to let go of those old ideas about who and what we are. Remember, the most important question we can ask ourselves is, who do you think you are? Do you think you're a body that gets one shot, and when you die, that's it? So you better get what you can get while you can get it, and everybody else, look out, because I'm coming to get mine. If that's who you think you are, if that's who you think you are, you're going to act one way.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if you think that you're an eternal spiritual being that was created by love, for love, and by love as created by love, as love, and for love,
Yeah.
and that you're not your body, and that who you are is connected to something that's not only wonderful, but it's divine. We are divinity itself incarnated in a physical form, and that we're all connected, that we're all one, which means what I do for you, I do for myself.
Yeah.
And what I fail to do for you, I fail to do for myself. If you think that's who you are, you're going to act in a whole different way in the world. So make a decision, make a choice. Who are you? What are you? What are you doing here? And the other thing is, we all have a purpose, and it's time to get on with it. We all came here for a reason. I'm setting up another website. It's probably going to be a nonprofit, and it's time to remember. Now is the time to remember who and what you are and why you came here, what you are doing here, and get on with it.
Like it.
Yeah.
So, that's a great challenge. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I could go on and on talking to you or listening to you. I'm not even talking, it's just listening. It's so refreshing and inspiring. And I think that
So check out,
this needs to be heard by people. People need to hear this.
Yeah.
It's late, sorry.
they will hear it. They will hear it. And people like you guys are making all this possible. You know, you guys are a place to help spread the message, you know?
Yeah.
Check out my website. Again, it's bebiggertoday.com, BEBIGGER today, all one word.com. Check out the book, check out the videos.
I'll put them on in the description so that people that see it, they can just click the links and find you.
Great.
There's a bunch of podcasts there that I've done. There's my TED Talk, TEDx talk is there. And in my book, in the back of my book, I have a list of recommended readings. So there's all kinds of resources for people to check out other stuff.
Yeah.
I have to say, for me now, all I need to do is go on YouTube, and whatever shows up in my feed is exactly what I need to hear that day.
Awesome.
Yeah. True.
Yeah. And it's like that was kind of like with me too. Yeah, I do a lot of meditations, and then I just pops up. Oh, that's the one I want.
So none of that is by accident, guys. We're being helped.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of the people that I interviewed for my documentary, they talk about spirit guides. They say that we all have one woman. Actually, I can highly recommend these books. It's called The Team, TEAM. There are 4 books in the series. It's written by a woman named Frances Ray Key. Frances, Raekey, 3 words. And her books talk about the fact that we have a team on the other side that's supporting us, that's helping us, that's whispering in our ear. That's what intuition is.
Yeah.
You know, that's what a hunch is. That's what And sometimes it comes through other people. But we're always being directed. We're always being guided if we believe it. You know, if you say, oh, you know, God doesn't love me, God doesn't care about me, nobody cares about me, nobody's going to help me, then guess what? You're creating your own reality. You're going to have that exact experience.
Yeah,
On the
exactly.
other hand, if you say, I'm loved by the universe and all the help I need is at my fingertips, then guess what? You're going to have that experience. Now, here's the thing. God will never do for us what we can do for ourselves. So you got to step up to the plate. You got to be responsible for your life. You got to be willing to take action, to make choices and do all of that. But in terms of what direction to go in, you know, stuff when we need help, it's there. If we ask, number one, we have to ask. And number two, we have to be willing to receive the help.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, eh? Being willing to receive as well.
Yeah.
Being willing to receive, you have to think that you deserve to be helped.
Yeah.
You know, that was a big issue for me. I wasn't worthy. You know, why would anybody want to help me?
Yeah.
For me. The self-pity, you know, and all of that. That got in the way of me having, remember, the subtitle of my book is Overcoming Our Self-Imposed Limits to Have the Life We Want.
Yeah.
Okay, you can't have the life we all get the life we want. So if I'm miserable, then guess what? It's because I want to be miserable.
That's right.
Yeah.
We're always choosing. We're always choosing. And the way this physical life is set up, we get, you know, law of attraction, law of resonance. We get whatever we're focused on.
Yeah.
In terms of creation, in terms of metaphysics, attention equals intention.
Yeah.
So what are you giving your attention to? If you're giving your attention to how everybody's doing things wrong, how everybody's messed up, how the world is messed up, how you can't trust people, how there's not enough money, there's not enough food, there's not enough, then guess what? That's what you're
That's what you
intending to
get.
happen in your life.
Yeah.
You don't get what you want, you get who you are. And who you are is how you think.
Yeah.
Who you are is what you're feeling, what your emotions are. And remember, thoughts lead to feelings, feelings lead to words and actions, and words and actions lead to outcomes.
Yes.
So take responsibility for your thoughts.
Yeah.
Use affirmations. Listen, turn off the news. Fuck the news. Don't watch the news.
Exactly.
Put on something positive, something life affirming. You know, watch somebody's story about forgiveness. Read a book about forgiveness. Read a story about, you know, compassion and understanding. Fill your mind with that stuff, and your whole world will change.
Right. Yeah, and then I hear like what you're saying about the news. Like I haven't watched the news. I mean, I was never a big news buff, but I just make sure that I, you know, don't ever. And then I just like one time I just turned the TV completely off, and I've gone back to TV a little bit, but not to where it's going to ruin, you know, what I do. I have a ritual schedule, but I do want to just put out that we're not saying here not to care about the people in Israel, because there is a major need for prayer right there. But like knowing what you're saying about the news, like no, negativity has to be out. It definitely needs to be out of our lives, and that's one root source is the news. I mean, you want drama, you want for it, but you know that's where to go. But if you don't want that in your life, cut that completely out. I hear you.
Yeah, I'm not saying don't be informed.
Right.
You know, there are other
No,
ways.
that's a different thing, yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, there are other ways to get information.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, and I don't want to demonize the news either, because I actually, working in Hollywood, I have friends who work in the news industry, and you know what? They're very committed to helping people by giving them information. All right, and so I'm not in any way, I don't want to demonize them or make them wrong.
Right.
And I think it's pretty obvious to me that the way the information is presented, the tone of the information and all of that, it's beyond just informing people.
Right.
And
It
it's
is.
more about inflaming people, because that's good for ratings.
Yeah.
Right. It just overwhelms you. Overwhelms you. Yeah.
Yeah. And the more upset you are, the more you're going to come back and watch.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, Now, if you watch the news and you go do something positive with that energy, then that's great. Continue to watch the news. But most people don't. Most people watch the news, they get all upset, they get angry, they're yelling. You know, my dad and my stepmom, they used to sit and yell at the screen, you know, in the news.
Yeah.
And then what happens is we get all angry and upset, and then we take it out on our kids, we take it out on our fellow drivers, we kick the cat. So use the information responsibly and do something positive as a result. So
And don't let
if there's
fear rule you, huh?
No. Right.
fear, yeah, I mean, fear is fear. So I have a whole chapter in my book on fear. You know, how much time you got? You know, we could talk
Well,
about that. But
I was actually going to say, can we do like a part 2 of this interview?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Because it's midnight over here, and I would really love to go to bed.
All right, let's say this. Let's say this. I'm happy to come back, but if you want, I'll send you guys a copy of my book, or you can get a copy on Amazon, whatever you want to do. And then we can talk about some of you can read through some of it, and we'll have something specific to talk about.
I think that is a very cool idea.
Yes. I don't know why I didn't think of that before. But yeah, we've just been doing our own thing here. Like, but yes, so great to have you on, Peter. And we'll definitely get together again. And remember Peter's challenge to everybody. What was that again, Peter? You challenged us to do what going forward?
Well, my challenge is the title of my book, Be Bigger Than You Think You Are. You know, don't let your limiting thoughts and beliefs about yourself or other people hold you back. You got to transform all of that. Okay. And the way to do it is love for yourself first, and then love for other people. Now, love for ourselves doesn't mean we let other people walk all over us. All right. So we got to find that balance. Got to be able to take care of ourselves. It's our responsibility. But then once we do that, then we can affect other people from a positive space instead of from a defensive, angry victim mentality.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
So
and
true.
we will see Peter, Erna, and I back on the fast track.
Yes. Stay tuned for part 2.
All right, great. Thank you, guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you for today, Peter, and talk to you soon.
Okay.
Bye. Bye. Have a good night. Bye, Erna.
Oh, hang on.